briefly cover obviously the topic is going to be about building a team meeting discipline. And in addition to that, there are some folks online that actually use our web application. We have about 20 companies using this now, and part of that web application is called the meeting room. It has a very, very specific agenda attached to it. And as I go through and talk about building a team meeting discipline, I'm also going to just show you some of the ways we build this into the web application that we're using. So just to start, if you would think about this for a minute, I'm going to do a short introduction broadly to team meetings. But if you could give some thought to this question, obviously you'll all have your own environments that you work in and your own ways of running your team meetings. But if you can think about one thing or one item that you could improve in your current team meeting structure, what would that be? I won't get any comments right now, but in a few minutes I'll go around the group, and if anybody has a comment to make when I get to it, please again use the hand icon, and I'll be more than happy to allow you to make some comments and perhaps pose some ideas. So for those who don't know, I think most of the people online have at least some exposure to XGAP. Our focus is purely on trying to help companies close the gap between what their plan or strategy says should happen and what actually occurs in practice. And clearly that they are two different things. Planning and strategy is theoretical, but execution is obviously the practice of causing those strategies to happen. And our fundamental approach to this is that any team, company, department, organization, in order to execute well, really has to nail 3 points. And those 3 points are these: that you have to be certain that your people are focused on the right things. Really, the main resource that anyone has is their people, and you can't afford to squander that. So ensuring that everyone's focused on the right things is the first thing. The second one is getting visibility on performance. As soon as you get visibility, it increases the level of accountability that you have, and it also increases your ability to make good decisions about how to move forward with your strategy. And then the third one is our topic for today, is to build a strong meeting discipline. I don't think we've ever worked with a team that we thought executed well that didn't have a fairly strong meeting discipline that underpinned the way they operated. And you know, part of what we've done in our work with our client companies is to spend quite a bit of time inside team meetings, and we've had the privilege and the benefit of doing that now in a number of different countries and a number of different cultures. But generally, I'd have to say that anytime we've had the opportunity to sit in a team meeting, it's given us a pretty good insight into how well that team executes strategy and performs. And obviously we've seen good examples of that, and we've obviously seen some poor examples as well. And as I go through this, I think you'll probably get a feel for the sorts of things that we look for when we're trying to identify where teams might be able to improve. There's one other comment I'd like to make about team meetings. Generally, the meetings are treated with a bit of disdain, and I think that's partly because in many cases they're not conducted all that well. But if you are a manager or a leader of a team and you think carefully about when you have an opportunity to impact folks, really it's the team meeting that gives you that best opportunity. And if you're not well prepared for that and have very specific ideas about what you want to get out of a meeting and how you want that meeting to be conducted, you're probably missing some of the opportunity you have to actually impact your team. So I'll get into some of those things as we go through this presentation, but I want to go back to that initial question. And remember, if you've got a comment on this, if you could just raise your hand or click on the hand icon, and I'll open up your mic, and we'll just see you know, what the folks in the group might have to say about this. What's the one thing you think, if you could improve your team meeting, what would that be? So if anyone would like to raise their hand, sometimes folks aren't all that ready to do this. I'm just going to go to Jason. Jason, I've opened up your mic. If you just want to make some comments, perhaps to the group, your thoughts on this.
Yeah, g'day Mark and g'day everyone else. I suppose I've got one question, but two parts to it. In a lot of meetings, I find that the group, and particularly either it be the leader or the participants, can go through a period of being unfocused, and you get a bit of dead time in the meeting. That's the first part that I wanted to get your thoughts on how you address that. And the second bit is often at the end of the meeting, everyone's watching the clock. It might be lunch, it might be morning tea or whatever. Um, we often walk out of the room without actually knowing what we're each going to be doing. So there's a little bit of by the water cooler after the meeting, figuring out what we actually had to deliver or what we decided during the meeting.
Sure. Okay. I think that's probably common to most folks around the group. Is there anyone else around the group? If you want to just raise your hand and make some sort of comment on this, I'd be more than happy to open up your mic. There's no obligation, of course. I'm not seeing anyone jumping in at the moment with their hand up. Look, let me just make a few. Oh, there we go. Tom, just 1 second. I'm just going to open Tom's mic. Go ahead, Tom. Please say what you've.
Just in relation to the last couple of points, we have very similar things that have been happening with us. But I guess the thing I try to do with mine is not to jam too much into the meeting. And we always find that when meetings are structured, everyone wants to put their 2 bob worth in. And for me, anyway, it's just a case of I always say we might work out what the objective is of the meeting, and anything that doesn't fit into that objective, I just say no to it.
Yeah.
That just structured time to actually have that, 5 or 10 minutes at the end where everyone's really clear on what they've got to do moving forward. Doesn't always work, but
yeah.
Sometimes.
That's excellent. In fact, Tom in his own way has covered off 3 or 4 key points that I want to try and make during this webinar. So I just want to cover off a couple of things I'm pretty sure you'll all be familiar with. I would say the number one thing that a lot of folks actually worry about and get concerned about is people just being on time. And I don't know. And then if you go to the other 2 points, people using laptops and phones and iPads and stuff during meetings, and people going off agenda, or the agenda being taken control of by someone who's a little bit louder than everybody else in the room. Let me just make a point about these 3 things. Each one of these is going to impact the meeting negatively. And I understand even these days, in different cultures, different work environments, different companies, there is some degree of acceptance of people being late. There's a degree of acceptance of using phones and laptops in meetings. And all I will say is each person has to determine for themselves how lenient or how strict they're going to be on these things. But there's no doubt in my mind that if people are late or if they're distracted by other things, then the quality of your meeting is going to be diminished. Again, it will be up to you how hard or fast you want to be on this. There is one little thing you might want to try if you've got people that are chronically late. You could actually, and this has worked, I've seen this work a bit, set the meeting for an unusual time, like 7 minutes past 11 or 10:53. You'll be surprised how much of an impact that has on folks when you have a specific time rather than the rounded hour or half hour. So they're just a couple of key points. But just getting back to our key topic here, really, and I think Tom kind of hit on this a little bit in his comments, to me, when you're running any meeting, the 2 key points are these. You have to make sure that you've got people focused on the right things, and that doesn't need to be a big agenda. It should be some very, very specific points that you feel are most appropriate for that team. Now, I'm going to share for you what I think they are for us when we talk about executing strategy. You may have your own version of that, but for us, it's very simple and it's very straightforward. And then the second thing is, people need to know specifically coming out of a meeting, what is the next action? What do I need to do next? In fact, often our evaluation when we're watching meetings, our evaluation of the way the meeting has been conducted is to simply ask people as they walk out of the room, okay, so what are the 3 things you're doing, or what is it specifically you have to do next? And if the answer to those questions are clear and specific, it's usually been a good meeting. If they are in some way grey and uncertain, then usually there is some fault in the way the meeting's been conducted. So let me go through 3 specific agenda items, and these actually match specifically with our approach to executing strategy. And those 3 items are these. Firstly, you have to spend some time on team progress, and I'll be very specific about what that means in a second, but I don't think you can run any team meeting without looking at where the team is in terms of what they're trying to achieve. If you don't address that, people become disconnected with their purpose. And so in some cases, your discussion on team progress could be lengthy. It could be 10, 15, 20 minutes, or it could be 2 or 3 minutes. But to me, it's something that needs to be addressed at each meeting. The second thing is individual progress. And obviously, it's the collective efforts of the team. And if we're not, being very clear to each person on the team exactly what they're focused on and how they're progressing, then we're not addressing obviously the drivers for team performance. So to me, that's the second one. And then the third one is this: roadblocks. Those things that are specifically stopping an individual or potentially stopping the team from actually achieving what you want them to achieve. So I'm going to go through each of these one item at a time. And as I go through them, I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to show you how we use our web application. And in addition to that, what I'm going to do is give you 3 or 4 questions I think you should ask at any point of those 3 agenda items. So let me just show you very quickly what our XGAP, for those who haven't seen it, what the XGAP business application looks like. And what you'll notice from this is what you're seeing is a single team, and you're actually seeing the 3 agenda items that I highlighted for the meeting. At the top of the page, you're seeing the team's measures of success, or their 90-day goals, which in this case is a sales team, so it's sales, margin, new product sales. You're seeing their high return activities, or the 3 to 5 things that they're focused on in order to deliver on those measures. And then underneath that, you're seeing a short summary of what each individual person is focused on. And normally, for those who aren't familiar with our methodology, we try and get each person to have a very, very focused 90-day plan or 90-day contract that says exactly what they're focused on. Now, you'll notice a tab here called the meeting room, and this is built into this application. And when you click on that tab, the very first thing you will see is the meeting actions from last week, so or whenever the previous meeting was. So clearly, before you start a meeting, you better cover off exactly whatever it was you decided last week before you do anything else. You really need to make sure that you've covered off, look, we said we were going to do these 3 or 4 things. How many have we done? Which ones are still are left that still need to be completed? So that's just kind of a short introduction to what this looks like. Now, I'm going to come back to this as we go through, but let's deal initially with team progress. And on the application, you'll see that arrow pointing to a start new meeting. And as soon as you hit that, what you're going to see is the 3 agenda items that I mentioned before down the left-hand side of the page. So again, this application is set up to help people execute strategy and to stay very focused on what they're doing during a team meeting. So you'll notice that team goals comes up first, then you've got individual progress and roadblocks, and we'll work through those. And you'll notice already we've got the team goals up, and we've got very specific measurable data here. This is the targets are clear, where they currently are, where the team is currently is clear. I mean, there's no room for grey, and I would recommend that this is pretty important in your team meeting, because often when you are discussing team progress, you will get answers like, oh yes, we're going pretty well, things are going good, or we're about 20% through and things are okay, or we're at 50%, but that is not really what you're after as a manager. In fact, if I go now to the key questions I think you need to ask on team progress, the very first question is to make sure that you have the clear truth about what the performance is. So part of that is having very specific objectives to start with, but sometimes, obviously in sales, this is a bit easier than it is in other departments, but specifically if you're in administration or finance or HR or marketing, you should still be able to have very specific objectives with very specific hard facts on the current situation. In addition to that, you might want to ask the team, look, here's where we're at. This is the truth of our performance. What's working for us, and what's not? What are the things that are going well for us that we could do more of? What are those things that are perhaps not going so well that we might need to alter, change, or stop? You could even ask, are we focused on the right things here? Because obviously sometimes the right things 2 months ago may not be the right things today. So, there's a constant need to just check and make sure as a team and as individuals we're focused on the right things if we're trying to deliver this team performance. And even the question, do we need to do anything differently? All this is doing is just checking with the team to make sure they are still focused on what the team is, the purpose of the team, what they're there for, which is obviously for everybody is to deliver some sort of measurable result. So let's go now to the second point, which is individual progress. And I'll just go again to the application. And what you can see here is, what we organize with all our clients is they have a very specific 90-day, we call a 90-day plan or a 90-day contract. And as you go through the meeting, the objective here in terms of individual progress is to look specifically at what they're focused on over 90 days. And you'll see where it says contract details there on your screen. You have this particular person, Audrey Miller, is focused on key accounts, A-class customers, and promotional events. The percentage sign says, exactly how important that is to the overall result for the team. 40% on key accounts, 35 on A-class customers, 25 on promotional events. And then a little objective or expected result on that particular high return activity. And that's reflected in the measurement on the right-hand side. So they have a target of 90 visits to key accounts, and in the case of A-class customers, a target of 135 visits, 6 promotional events, and then the current shows where they're currently at. So it's giving an overall view of what this particular person is focused on over 90 days. And then even more important than that, and more specific to the meeting, is what are you focused on right now? What are your top 3 actions for the week? Again, this is very focused and very specific, and it's totally on individual performance. And obviously, as you go through the meeting, you move to the next person, and you would work your way around the table. When we've done this live, and people get good at it, it's a 5-minute discussion if you're doing fortnightly or weekly meetings. Now, of course, out of these discussions, obviously there's actions can come out of them, and you'll notice on the right-hand side of the screen where it says meeting actions, you're actually able to assign specific actions to each person and record those in this application. So you're seeing the meeting action being added there. It's been assigned to Jenny Black, and there's a date being applied. And as you go through, those actions are recorded down the right-hand side of the screen. Again, we're trying to do everything in this application that's specific to performance, both team and individual. So the questions that I would be, again, inclined to ask from an individual standpoint are very similar to those of a team. But again, you want to make sure that you have specific facts here. You can't afford to have any grey about what people are focused on and where they're actually at. I would be pressing to find out what the challenges are, if they have any, or even, I guess, are there things that they feel are going well that they could share with the team? if they need any help from either you as a manager or anyone else in the team. And then specifically, again, you will see this top 3 of the week. And we found that if this question is constantly asked, people think very carefully when you only give them 3 things as to what it is that they need to focus on relative to what the team's trying to do over the next week. Because as we know, most of us have a million things to do. This question is, what are the top 3? What are the things that are going to have the greatest impact on your ability to deliver what you need to deliver as a member of the team? So let's go to the third point, which is the roadblocks. And this to me is something that's often overlooked. I'll just again bring up the application here, and you'll notice that this particular team has 2. Often, and we noticed this quite a bit, and we've worked very hard in the last 2 years to try and resolve this issue for the people we work with. Roadblocks remain hidden. Nobody talks about them, or if they do, they talk about them in the corridors and not where they need to be talked about, which is in meetings. And so I would encourage you as a manager to really press your team to tell you, what are the things that are stopping them individually, or what are the things that are causing us difficulty as a team. We sat recently with a CEO head of a division in New York, and he worked extremely hard to ask his team and dig out anything that was a roadblock. And then for the next 24 hours would really not focus on anything else himself personally other than removing those roadblocks, or at least trying to deal with them. If they're not brought up and they're not addressed, and you don't have a specific action to deal with them, they tend to remain hidden, and they continue to make it hard for people to not only achieve objectives but deliver on whatever the strategic initiatives are. So again, some key questions you might want to ask on roadblocks is, what really pressing the team on, what's stopping us here? What are the things that are causing some difficulty? Perhaps even ask them for suggestions to how we can deal with it. Often these things are within their realm of being able to fix. Other times they have to be elevated to people above them. And sometimes they can't be fixed, they just have to be dealt with. And then being very, very specific with the team about, what action needs to be taken here. Now, at the end of the meeting, as far as the application is concerned, what you're going to see is a list of meeting actions down the right-hand side of the page as a result of your discussion on team progress, individual progress, and roadblocks. And in the application, each of those meeting actions is sent obviously to everybody's inbox, and the complete list is sent to everyone as a record of what went on in this meeting. So it's very, very specific. We're trying to do the 2 things I said, which is stay focused on those things that are critical, and then make sure people walk out with very, very specific actions. So now in ending the meeting, again, we're leaning a little bit towards how we would do this in terms of executing strategy, but I would be very strong on confirming the top 3 of the week, confirming whatever actions there are or roadblocks. And I always feel like there's a need for managers to have this all-encompassing question at the end of a meeting, which is there anything else out there that I should know, or is there anything else out there that we should deal with? Because clearly there may be other things, and that's kind of a way to allow the team to do that. So again, 3 very simple agenda items, but very focused, and I would say it would be hard really to run an effective meeting if you didn't at least touch on all those. Now there may be other things you want to add for your personal circumstance, but I just feel like every team needs to spend time on those 3 things at every single meeting. Okay, guys, so look, thanks very much for your time. I'm going to email you a copy of the video of this webinar. It'll be posted on our website in the next 48 hours. I'll also send you some stuff on some strategy to execution workshops we're doing during December and January. Usually we find folks at this time of the year trying to get themselves organised for 2013, and we've got some fairly specific thoughts on that. So I'll send you some material, and if you're interested, you can just reply to me via email. Guys, thanks so much for attending. I hope you have a good rest of the Friday afternoon, and enjoy the weekend, and hope we can get you online again at some point. Thanks very much, everybody.